As the hosts of The View addressed the Derek Chauvin trial, and mind you, this was before the verdict was handed down, finding him guilty of all 3 counts, Meghan McCain could not help but complain about protesters, warning that they may become violent if they don't get the verdict that they want. And guess what? That commentary clearly didn't sit well with other ladies on The View, including Whoopi Goldberg. Take a look.
In the suburbs, the quote, mostly peaceful protesting where people could see businesses being looted, cities being lit on fire. That rhetoric didn't play well at all, specifically with suburban women. And I think Democrats have to be really careful that it doesn't look like they're giving cover. I believe in protesting. I believe in peaceful protesting all day, every day. It's a integral part of an American pastime. I think the second it becomes violent, you lose a lot of people on the message that is really, really important right now.
Francesca, I want to go to you right away because look, Meghan McCain's not the only right winger who's spouting this talking point. What's your response to it?
An integral pastime. Girl, you've never been to any kind of protest, right? Unless it was like, I don't know, they're out of boba in the mall or whatever, which is not a bad reason to protest. We all like boba. But the point is like, I would go to there, but like
I do like boba.
What is she? Don't say that. You didn't like. I mean, can we go back to the time and her thoughts around Colin Kaepernick kneeling peacefully during the national anthem, right? Like, I love how Meghan McCain always tries to sort of be like a Tomi Lahren or a Tucker Carlson, but like one shade she thinks more sensible, but she's really just echoing the exact same line, which is that the looting and the worst protester represents all of them, and that outshadows and overshadows police brutality and the need for police reform generally. So like it's just giving a right winger a bone to gnaw on, and there she is, just like like, all right.
100%. And I just realized something. Is Meghan McCain the George Bush of right-wing talk show hosts? Where like she essentially does and says the same awful things. But much like George Bush, he puts like a happy, polite, friendly face on all of the awful things that he advocates for, as opposed to Donald Trump, who's just like overall awful and unlikable, right? But Whoopi Goldberg was not going to allow that talking point to just stand. She challenged it, and you're about to get a taste of it in this next clip.
Well, 99% of the people who protest out there are not violent. We do find that there are people who are burning and looting stuff. People need to be very aware of who they are and where they are at any given time. I personally would prefer that we didn't have oodles and oodles of videotape of officers getting ready to go out to fight the protesters, because I feel like people want it to happen. I don't feel like people in power, because I feel like if they really cared about all of this, they would have come to the aid of the protesters and said, let's work on this. You don't need to burn stuff down. Peaceful protesting works. All you have to do is look back in history and see how people changed the fight.
Yeah, and I would just add to that. I think she's right, and I would just add to it. It is fascinating to see how these demonstrations unfolded, how the cops focused all of their militant energy toward squashing the peaceful protesters while the businesses were being looted, right? Like if they were genuinely concerned about looters, why didn't they go out of their way to protect the businesses instead of cracking skulls among peaceful protesters? I mean, and that's the other thing. It's very easy to just paint a picture regarding these demonstrations by cherry picking the violent moments that you want to cherry pick just to kind of paint a picture. And I feel like that's happening.
Yeah.
Are the people who do the looting part of Black Lives Matter? Is there any evidence to that? There are gonna be opportunists, there are gonna be people who jump onto an opportunity like that to try to loot or cause trouble. But I would argue that the demonstrations provided a perfect opportunity for police to show just how effective and good they can be at their jobs by protecting the businesses, but they didn't do that. Instead, they roll in the tanks, they drive the police cruisers over protesters, they treat them with an extreme amount of violence. Under Trump, you had federal agents showing up to places like Portland and literally like putting protesters in unmarked cars and driving away. I mean, these are not the appropriate reactions or response to the demonstrations. And I just find it fascinating that you hear people, especially the right wing, like fearmonger about the looting. But they never take a good hard look at why the police are unable to actually protect the businesses from the looting in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely someone who, whenever I see like police outside of a business, I'm like, oh, great, cool. So you value private property more than you value like life. But I think you're right that
they do.
They absolutely do. But I also feel like Whoopi Goldberg makes a really good point in there, and you're sort of making the same point, which is like, what an opportunity where police in Minneapolis could begin the healing process by not showing up in tanks, right? By showing up not in riot gear, by maybe escorting with a limited amount of police officers the peaceful protesters, by standing by doing some kind of gesture, providing water to them, like they provided water, police provided water to Kyle Rittenhouse, who had murdered 2 people. I mean, imagine the ways that the police could show that they have turned the page, that they are deserving of public confidence. But no, they roll up with all the machinery, which, to be honest, it's like a little flashy, it's like someone like rolling up to like brunch with like a Louis Vuitton and like a bunch of diamonds, like just like blinged out, and you're like, slow down, Jessica, that kind of like stop showing off that you've got all this money while we're like trying to get out of pandemic and like a lot of us don't have work and stuff. So it is the wrong message to be sending, and they always add insult to injury. I mean, I think, and remember, for folks who are out there who are like somehow scared of the movement, know that when police show up militarized, as in like one of the first instances that kicked off the Black Lives Matter movement, which was the murder of Mike Brown in Ferguson, and then you had tanks rolling through it, like that is a very politicizing experience. Very politicizing. You will turn someone from someone who is sort of lightly critical of the cops to being incredibly critical just by your response. So once again, as police need to show restraint in line of duty, they need to show restraint here and be the bigger force, but not by larger, but like sort of have the high ground and de-escalate the situation.
One thing that I think about a lot when we see the kind of militarized response to protesters is what happened during the Occupy Wall Street protests, when the demonstrators were in Zuccotti Park in New York. One of the first things that JP Morgan Chase did was provide a fat donation to the NYPD. Like millions of dollars. They knew what they were doing. I mean, policing is really implemented. Like the big function of policing is to protect the elite, is to protect capital, right? And so that's why you keep hearing this talking point about like, oh, the businesses. Yeah, but we're talking about human lives right now, right? So I get it. I get that people panic about looting, but what's the bigger picture and why are people taking to the streets? I think the focus on looting is intentional in order to deflect from what the underlying issue really is. And that is obviously the brutal policing that claims the lives of countless people who are unarmed in many cases, who are children in some cases, who are elderly, defenseless people with dementia in some cases. That's the problem. But I do want to end with this one tweet just to kind of remind you guys of, when you see Meghan McCain hyperventilating about these things, she's not necessarily being fully honest about what her experiences are. So she had tweeted, "My neighborhood in Manhattan is eviscerated and looks like a war zone. De Blasio and Cuomo are an utter disgrace. This is not America. Our leaders have abandoned us and continue to let great American cities burn to the ground and be destroyed. I never could have fathomed this." And Kristen Bartlett responded to it by saying, "Meghan, we live in the same building and I just walked outside it's fine. It's one of my favorite moments on Twitter.
Just the victimhood complex. I mean, I just want to bring up, and for those who, this just happened, Bill O'Reilly decided to tweet about the Derek Chauvin case. And he's saying it's wrong. He said to celebrate the destruction of another human being is wrong. He thinks that Derek
I mean, I certainly celebrated the destruction of Bill O'Reilly in his career. So maybe that's where he's coming from, who knows? But no, there are certain things worth celebrating. Justice is a good example of that. And Derek Chauvin had no problem kneeling on the neck of George Floyd for over 9 minutes, effectively murdering him in broad daylight. I think it's important to celebrate justice in cases like this, especially when it's so rare, especially when we see case after case of cops essentially getting let off easy by grand juries. So Bill O'Reilly can suck it.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.